meditations. At the level of Teresa of Avila and so on, you cannot find them weakness in them. They are authentic spiritual experience. And this is very difficult to accept, how the same person can order poisoning, torture, manipulate, and nonetheless, you cannot find this in his meditations. Huxley tried to put the blame on Christianity. So he, as you maybe know, turned towards Eastern spiritual experience. But I think things are the same there in Eastern spirituality. Let's take Eastern spirituality at its cleanest, most radical, Zen Buddhism. I really advise you to read a wonderful book written in English, Brian Victoria, the author, Zen at War. It demonstrates that the large majority of the millions of Japanese Zen Buddhists in 1930s and 40s totally supported Japanese imperialist war expansion. Maybe some of you know or remember Daisetsu Suzuki, the great popularizer of Zen. He was well known in hippie times, 1960 and so on. It is less known that in 1930s, for example, when Japanese army invaded China and did the well-known slaughter in Nanking, Suzuki wrote a text celebrating this attack as an act of love. He went even a step further. He claimed that for the majority of ordinary people who don't have time for years of meditation, a total military discipline is the easiest way to realize the goal of Zen, the overcoming of yourself. He, Suzuki, wrote how when you are a soldier and an officer gives you an order, shoot, kill, and you do it automatically, if you really can do it, you attain Satori, which is the Zen Buddhist term for enlightenment. But again, the horrible thing to admit is that if you read Suzuki, his spiritual description and experience of Zen is totally authentic. So this brings us close to the notion of neighbor. A neighbor is not another human person simply with his inner life. Neighbor is that which is in the other more than the other himself. In the sense of some demonic dimension that you yourself are not aware of. Probably it happened to you. You have a good friend, someone you think you really know. And then in some difficult situation, this person does something. You see an obscene smile, an aggressive gesture, and you ask yourself, my God, is this the person that I knew? And usually even the person itself is not aware of this dimension. Although I am an old-fashioned materialist, I have an incredibly great appreciation of Christian theology, because I think you find this dimension in the very heart of Christianity. For example, the best Christian theologists got it that this is the moment on the cross when Jesus Christ says that, Eli, Eli, lama, Father, why have you forsaken me? Maybe some of you know it. There is a wonderful drawing, not full painting, of Crucifixion by Michelangelo Buonarroti. It's known as a portrait, Christ on the cross for Vittoria Colonna. Michelangelo tried then to get the portrait back to destroy it. And it is, if you look at it closely, a terrible portrait. It shows Jesus Christ, his face in total despair. But the key is the right hand. It's like, fuck you to God. This is the moment when Jesus Christ becomes truly a neighbor. And again, really radical theologists are aware of it. For example, my favorite one, Gilbert Keith Chester. He wrote that at that moment of despair at the cross, Jesus becomes for a moment an atheist. And he claims in a very convincing way that this is what makes Christianity absolutely unique. In other religions, of course, they admit people who don't believe in God, who are atheists. Only in Christianity, Chesterton says, God himself becomes an atheist for a moment. And I think that it is crucial to connect here Jesus Christ with the figure of, how to put it in Czech, Job. Read the book of Job. I think it's the first text of ideology critique of ideology. What happens there? You know the story. Things turn really bad for Job, and what happens then? When things look bad, he loses his family, all the wealth, and so on. Then 3 friends come, 3 theologians, and each of them tries to convince Job that his suffering, his misfortunes do have a deeper meaning. You know, the first one says, God is just, so even if you don't know what you did wrong, you must have done something wrong because you suffer. So, the other 2 give different versions, but all of them give the same message. It's not meaningless, it has a deeper meaning. And why does Job protest? His protest is not that he is innocent. He just insists that his misfortune doesn't have a deeper meaning. And the big surprise, read it if you don't believe it to me, when at the end of the book of Job, God enters the scene, he says, everything that Job says is true, everything that the 3 theologians said is wrong. And in his terrifying speech, God then answers Job by giving even further examples of the meaninglessness of the universe that he created. For example, God says, but why do you think that the rain falls there on the rocks where there is no earth to fertilize it? So God's basic answer is not, no, your suffering has a different meaning, but you are nothing special. The whole universe is crazy like that. Literally, read it. And so I think that we should read against this background the death of Christ on the cross. It's not that what dies on the cross, not a messenger from God. Which God? Do you know this disgusting theological metaphor? When we see something terrible, evil, it is as if when we look at a picture from too close and it appears to us a stain. But of course, when you step back and see the whole picture, you learn how what appears to you a stain contributes to the harmony of the picture. So the idea is what appears to us finite, human, mortals as evil is really just an element in a larger, beautiful design by God. And I think that precisely this God is dead in Christianity. After the death of Christ, what comes? Holy Spirit. And Holy Spirit is the spirit of the community of believers. It's almost, I would say, the spirit of a revolutionary party. The message of Christ is not trust me, but I trust you. And even a deeply conservative theologist like the French poet Paul Claudel knew this. When he says God is helpless without us, God needs our help. So let me jump a little bit ahead so that I will somehow okay, just 2 more steps I will try to do in the next half an hour. First, we have now this terrifying dimension of the neighbor, the abyss of the other person. How do we how can we survive the neighbor?